thank you so much for joining us. We're here in episode 2 of the Crypto Regs series. Super excited to be joined again by Timo Lehes. He's a co-founder of Swarm.Markets, and Irina Karagyaur, who's head of Metaverse growth at Unique Network. And we're talking here about how NFTs, or are NFTs, growing up, and how NFTs are growing up, and looking specifically at the role they're playing in the world of financial services. So Timo, just quickly, starting with you, we've obviously seen NFTs become massive, big headline news in every space, from virtual commerce selling for millions of pounds to art to gaming. But there's obviously many more use cases of NFTs that have been less explored and probably less characterized by the mainstream news. Can you go into some of the other roles of NFTs, and specifically looking at the role of NFTs in financial services beyond the sort of cultural phenomenon that they've become in other spaces?
I think we've been following this obviously since the CryptoKitties was taking down the Ethereum network, practically whenever that was, like 2017. Yeah. And now it's grown into this fantastic ecosystem, right? So around, like, arts and collectibles and everything else, as well as in games. So we looked at NFTs from kind of more from a technology point of view, like, how we would apply it to what we do, which is financial services. And so there's a couple of areas where we think there's a very natural fit to use NFTs, some which are, less exciting, such as, we're using NFTs as a way to show that a wallet is qualified to participate on our DeFi network. So that's like one way of using NFTs from a technology point of view, which is just kind of very practical for us because we think it plugs in nicely with the DeFi architecture. But some of the other aspects, which are more like, in tune with like what you would think this conversation would be about, is like that obviously that you can use NFTs to reflect different types of assets, and really kind of, when we talk about financial services, we will be talking both about digital assets, such as, let's say, a staking node on a blockchain, or, from that to a physical property, which is a non-blockchain, non-digital out in the physical world, which has its own kind of, complexities associated with it. Or it could be something that's like a kind of a digital construct, but that is not on blockchain, such as, a domain name or a carbon credit or something like that. So since we're creating like horizontal market infrastructure for these things, we're focused more on like, some of the problems that you have to solve in the context of using NFTs in financial services. So, those are things like price discovery, like what is the regulatory implication of having an NFT that represents something that has an underlying asset value, whether it's a security or a non-security, how does that differ depending on if it is a security or not a security? And then, how do you like create, let's say, commoditized bundles of NFTs so that you can basically provide mechanisms for price discovery, and then also, in order for that to be able to be used in collateralization on DeFi and things like that. So we look at it very much from a horizontal point of view, rather than just saying, hey, let's tokenize a gold bar as an NFT and bring that on chain, and because you can do that, right? And then that would be an example of, an application in the financial services space, or, just tokenize a stock or something like that via an NFT, and then apply that into, some kind of financial services architecture. So yeah, so that's kind of how we look at it. We think it's a massively important like technology and mechanism, and so it's kind of top of mind really for us.
And I think it's worth just adding into that. I mean, we've seen some examples, almost like you say, of NFTs being used by everything. For example, De Beers, where we're using NFTs to trace diamonds from mine throughout their life cycle. They just weren't known as NFTs. And actually, it's part of the sort of the broader part of tokenization of assets and sort of digitizing assets and recording that on blockchain. So I think it's sometimes easy to see that NFTs get caught up in the excitement of selling bits of digital art for lots of money, when actually they're part of that larger space, as you say.
Yeah.
And Irina, you're coming at this from a completely different perspective. You're coming at this from sort of the more creative side of the space, as you say. But have you seen any roles of NFTs in the space of financial services and any real world practical implications in there? Or where do you see NFTs or as we say, tokenized assets playing a role in this space?
Yes, Erica, I'm more on the creative side of things. As a unique network, we first thought of two programs, the art program for NFTs and gaming program, because in December, a lot of cases, the attention was attracted to NFT space through auction houses like Christie's, through sales of people, and through art sales of NFTs and collectibles. But I've actually recently published an article for Foundation for International Expertise in Real Estate, speaking exactly about the power of ownership and how NFT can play a crucial role in authenticity and providing this certificate of authenticity for any type of real world asset that can be brought on the blockchain. Because what you and Timo just discussed, the digitization is what we're actually, in my opinion, going through, because we're not yet in the stage of tokenizing everything, because we first need layer one digitizing everything. So representing all that we have in a real world into the digital world, but also there is a parallel digital assets economy that plays a crucial role in the NFT space. So digital fashion, music that is only released in the form of NFTs. So there is this space and the creation of virtual worlds with digital art as well. There is a lot of space for growth with NFTs and DeFi, but that Timo maybe can give us a better perspective how he sees the collateralization. But I agree that this has great potential. We have not seen much yet because we have seen a lot of cases and a lot of examples of collectibles being traded as NFTs, but all the rest of the assets are still just kind of picking up the pace. I say a lot of digital fashion and a lot of activities in that area, and even music is still not, well developed. We can talk. I think I'll let Timo talk about collateralization, then I'll go back into explaining what's happening in the creative economy, because there is a lot that can be done and obstacles that we have in current space due to technical limitations, and all that can be overcome with the new technologies as proof of stake and substrate framework.
Yeah, and look, I think there's a bunch of things that are actually missing right now in terms of like even technology stack in order to get like the full benefit of what NFTs can represent and what we can do with them, right? So we're focused on like very basic things such as NFT issuance from the perspective of like, what is this NFT representing? If it's a digital asset, okay, then we use this process. If it's a existing security that sits with a securities custodian in the financial services space, then we use another process, because you need to link those two, right? And then if it's a physical asset or it's like a property or something, well, then you need to run even like a third type of process to make sure that that there's like a clear path from the NFT to whatever asset it represents. So those things, like on the issuance side, we're very much focused on. And then once you've created an NFT that, if somebody says it represents a gold bar, you have to know that it actually does that, right? And if you have that, then you can start creating bundles. And if you have bundles, then you can issue basically a commodity token that represents some commonality or common pool of NFT. So if I want to put together a bundle of, let's say, carbon certificates or some other kind of unique collection of assets, or even like you could even do bundles for crypto punks and just throw them into a basket, such as the B20 token, and then you issue a commoditized token that represents the whole basket, right? And if you have a whole basket of things that have some properties that are similar, then you can use that for price discovery, because then you know that, okay, if there's 1,000 things in the basket, and we know that the per unit price or value is probably, X divided by 1,000, where the X is kind of the total value of the basket. So you can use that as a mechanism for price discovery, which leads us to the next piece, which is then, how can we use NFTs as collateral in a DeFi world? Well, you can only do that if there's a way for you to determine value, so that you can basically say, okay, here's the loan to value ratio that I'm going to use towards that NFT. And it's very hard to do that for like unique objects, obviously, because if you only have one NFT and you want to use that as collateral, then, how do you price that NFT? And it, the only way to do it is really through an auction process. Mm-hmm. So, but it is kind of, if it's not commoditized, then, you have this situation where you're probably not going to get like full utilization of the collateral value, but you're actually going to get like pretty low loan to value, because there's like so much price risk involved in issuing, let's say, for example, a credit against some kind of asset. So those are the things that we're like focusing on. And then obviously we have trading pools, which is basically what we do. So once you have like, if you have a staking node as an NFT, then you can put that into a pool and trade ETH against ETH2 staking nodes, so that people can kind of move in between like liquid ETH and illiquid ETH2 staking nodes through a trading situation where the staking node is represented by an NFT. So those are the things that we're like building now, which we think are missing from a kind of a general purpose perspective, even within financial services, in order to be able to use NFTs for the kind of to develop the potential that we see for NFTs in financial services. And that's like completely independent of what's going on at like OpenSea and Rarible and all the other platforms on the art side, because that's already, they've like built vertical solutions for more kind of narrow use cases of NFTs as I see it. So yes, that's kind of where that's what we're focusing on. And it's very much kind of building rails right now. But once we have done that, then we'll be able to demonstrate like how you fractionalize NFTs, how you trade NFTs, how you loan against an NFT,
No, thank you. I mean, it's an interesting space, because there's been a few projects that have been looking at tokenizing assets or creating NFTs or various physical real world assets, and several of those have been held up by regulation, or maybe they just got in too early, at least in the past years, and we're now starting to see some companies sort of looking to break out of that and hopefully succeed in really tokenizing real world assets. Where do you see, Timo, we'll start with you, sort of this going, and any sort of practical limitations, or where do you see the practical role of NFTs going and growing over the next year?
We think that is actually going to streamline the process of tokenizing assets. Because once we've figured out some of these onboarding aspects of using NFTs to represent some assets somewhere else, mm-hmm. then the cost structure for that is like super efficient. And like even the regulatory environment for that is straightforward, because just because you create a digital representation of something that is not like, inherently on chain, it doesn't become a security. So there's no filings or other stuff that you have to do at the initial like inception or like issuance of the NFT, which is great, because then you can just start onboarding like massive amounts of assets onto blockchains, and then start using them there for various purposes. And then of course, if you start selling those and they're actually like dividend paying or somehow financial instruments, well, yes, then there's some regulatory aspects that you have to deal with. But that's only like a small subset of the assets that you brought on chain. So we think that it's like the next 12 months is going to be basically developing NFTs into a conduit to bring assets onto chain, into the digital world. And we think that's super exciting.
Oh, great. And what about you, Irina? Where do you see NFTs going over the next 12 months? And where do you see their practical uses going?
If I may add here to fractionalization and these important features that are really difficult to implement and develop in the current ecosystem on Ethereum blockchain, for example. On Substrate, there is and a mode, refundability mode, that can be enabled for price discovery. So you can actually break NFT into multiple pieces and say you have a CryptoPunk that costs $1 million, and then you can break it into 1 million pieces and assign $1 to each piece and bring it back for price discovery. So all these advanced features will be possible in the near future, in the next 6 to 12 months. We're also there are a lot of companies building fiat on ramp solutions, because one of the biggest obstacles in the NFT space, apart from, not only for developers, but for users to join, is complexities of marketplaces, UX and UI, user friendliness, and also payments. So how do you buy your NFT? If you are not familiar with crypto space and you don't know how to open a wallet and where to buy crypto, you may really be excluded from this NFT space. So what we're working currently is enabling fiat on ramp solutions so people can pay with credit cards. It's very, very simple, right? Very kind of straightforward step, but it will really give us a lot of hopefully big mass adoption boost. Another thing, what I'm seeing is the gamification. So all these virtual worlds, apart from finance, like games like Axie Infinity have proven to us that there is a space for these virtual economies to grow in their countries, where people may want to join other economies and grow their businesses and virtual businesses, and say even digital fashion or art, need to find their market and need to find people, their buyers, and actually stand out in a space. So another thing that we're currently seeing with NFT marketplaces is that they're overcrowded. So there must be another way of marketing yourself as an NFT artist. And joining this creative economy, pretty much like people, I always compare it to YouTube or Instagram, the kind of creative economy 2.0. And now we're moving into creative economy 3.0, where people are actually owners of their own platform. So they can decide on how to set up their marketplace, whether it's if they sell video, there are already social platforms like Subsocial that are trying to replace Twitter and go decentralized, because decentralization is one of the most important benefits of blockchain, that you become the owner of your own marketplace or platform, and you put your content out there and nobody can shut it down. So that's where we should be heading to in the near future, hopefully, to become more decentralized and to give more power to creators over their own content.
Thank you. Yeah, I think me and Timo both smiled at the same moment there. And I think it's fair to say that the user experience of using or buying or issuing NFTs hasn't always been as good as it could be, and is thankfully rapidly improving. Is that a fair summary, Timo?
Oh, come on. Yeah. Most of this stuff, I mean,
I'm being diplomatic.
No, but I mean, exactly. I mean, as much as we like to talk about like self-custody and stuff like that, it is a real barrier, like you're saying, Irina, to actually get people on board, because they don't know how to deal with wallets. So it's like that's a real issue, right? So I think it's important to have the ability or the possibility to self-custody, as part of the architecture. But then again, I mean,
have that easy as well.
Yeah,
easy to do.
We have a custody license for the purpose of actually being able to solve that usability problem, which is that most people don't know how to deal with wallets. So you kind of have to build your own solution as well to make sure the usability is there.
Yeah, no, thank you. Well, conscious we're coming to the end of time here, but just in a couple words, if you could both just share the one use case of NFTs and sort of that's coming up that you're most excited by. Timo?
Oh, the one use case. I think probably, okay, it's going to sound awful, but probably profit participation, because it's pretty cool if you can just have an NFT which allows you, because you kind of either you helped finance an artist or you helped finance something else, and then you can just have a bunch of people holding NFTs in their wallets, and over time they can just kind of accrue you know, the economic benefits of that. So it becomes this kind of helping economy, which is, you know, in some ways totally decentralized, you know, and then just the money flows are just there, which is like the kind of the promise of the Internet of Value. So
new improved crowdfunding almost.
Yeah, almost. I mean, you know, for really anything, right? So yeah.
No, totally. And you, Irina, just in a few words?
I'm most excited about Digital Art for Climate project that we are supporting as a tech partner. The aim is to drive attention to the climate change and actions needed by every one of us to basically survive, is not to be. And also our NFT marketplace's aim is to raise funding to support climate action on one side and to support young artists on the other side. So we ran design-a-thon for UX and UI designers to join all over the globe. So we had really exciting young teams participating, and now there is an art competition ongoing, and we're just back from Milan's pre-COP youth event where we minted the first NFT collection for climate action. And next stop is Glasgow COP26, where we're preparing very exciting NFT drop for basically attracting attention to this technology, to the power of this technology, and to unite people and give them the tool which can help them to communicate and to take action towards global need and global goal.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I have no doubt that if we come back in 12 months, it'll be a fully different space with different answers and hopefully improved user experience and on-ramping. So Irina and Timo, thank you so much for joining us for episode 2 of Crypto Regs. See you soon.